Hi, today we are going to be talking about the process of human cells during cellular respiration to provide them with power.
Cellular respiration is how we derive energy from the food we eat, specifically speaking, glucose. The chemical formula for glucose is C6H12O6.
In order to turn glucose into energy, we need oxygen. 6 molecules of oxygen is needed for it to work.
Through the processes of cellular respiration, we are going to turn glucose and 6 molecules of oxygen into 6 molecules of H2O, 6 molecules of CO2, and more energy to continue dancing.
Wait. We can't just use that energy to continue dancing. First, our body has to turn that energy into ATP. This is because in order for our body to use energy, it needs to be in the form of ATP in order for it to grow.
Let me explain. ATP is composed of a nitrogenous base called adenine and a sugar called ribose with 3 phosphate groups attached to it.
Hence, the name adenosine triphosphate.
Now, these 3 phosphate groups are extremely uncomfortable being so close to each other. So the ATP is able to wash one of the phosphate groups off, and then it becomes ADP, or adenosine diphosphate.
In this reaction, when ATP breaks off a molecule of phosphate, it transfers into energy.
And because there are so many Y molecules passing by, the OH structure known as hydroxide from the H2O comes over and takes the place of the old phosphate.
And just to let you know, when you use water to break down compounds, it's referred to as hydrolysis.
Alright, enough of this. Let's get to the fun stuff. Let's talk about how ATP is affected by cellular respiration.
Okay, well, in the beginning, it all begins with oxygen and glucose. Cellular respiration doesn't all happen at once. There's actually 3 stages in which glucose is transferred into ATP. 3 stages? Yeah! Them being glycolysis, the Krebs cycle, and the electron transport chain, which from now on will be referred to as ETC.
Okay, the first step, glycolysis, or the breakdown of glucose. Glucose is a sugar, and glycolysis is the process it takes to break a glucose down into 2 different 3-carbon molecules. These 2 groups of 3 carbon molecules are known as pyruvate. Now, glycolysis needs 2 ATPs before it can even think about generating 4 ATPs of an end product.
In addition to the 2 ATP molecules that glycolysis makes as an end product, it also makes 2 molecules of pyruvate and 2 molecules of NADH.
Whoa, we're getting ahead of ourselves here. Like us, oxygen is needed for the overall process of cellular respiration to work. Not every stage is needed oxygen. For example, glycolysis. It can occur without oxygen, making it an anaerobic process. Without oxygen, the pyruvate that we mentioned earlier that was formed during glycolysis get rerouted to a process called fermentation. Staying with the process of anaerobic respiration, if there's no oxygen, the cell needs more NAD+ to continue the process of glycolysis.
Since this is true, fermentation frees some NAD+, which happens to make ethyl alcohol and CO2, which in our bodies is lactic acid.
As pretty as it looks right now. Okay, ready?
Ever wonder why your muscles are sore after a workout? This is because of lactic acid. You see, once your molecules have used up all the oxygen they have to kick into the anaerobic process so that they can keep supplying you oxygen in order to work out.
Back on track, the process has 2 ATP molecules from glycolysis. But the fun stops here for anaerobic respiration.
2 processes, the Krebs cycle and the ETC, are both aerobic processes, which mean they require oxygen.
The Krebs cycle. The glycolysis process just happens in the cytoplasm. On the other hand, the Krebs cycle happens in the inner membrane of a mitochondria. The Krebs cycle takes the products of glycolysis, the pyruvate, and turns them into 2 ATP molecules for each glucose. And some energy!
Here's how the Krebs cycle turns the pyruvate that we got from glycolysis into ATP. First, the pyruvate must be oxidized, which means it gets combined with oxygen. And one of the carbons of the 3 carbon chains bonds with an oxygen molecule and departs from the cell as CO2. What's left is the 2 carbon compound called acetyl-CoA. After this happens, another NAD+ comes in and collects the hydrogen and becomes NADH.
But I know that 2 pyruvate gets created into another 2 molecules of 2 NADH. that will be used later. Similar to glycolysis, enzymes are essential because they are the proteins that bring the things together when they need to react with each other.
Enzymes bring together phosphate and ATP. They also bring together acetyl-CoA and the 4-carbon molecule called oxaloacetic acid, making citric acid. This citric acid is then oxidized by cutting off a bunch of carbons. As these carbons get cut off the citric acid, there are leftovers in the form of CO2, which are eventually exhaled by us.
Now, each time a carbon comes off the citric acid, which is in your orange juice, some energies are produced, but it's not our normal ATP. It is a completely different type. It brings us back to the NAD+, and its partner, FAD, NAD+, and FAD picks up hydrogen and are energized electrons from each pyruvate, which then changes them. The addition of hydrogen to them turns NAD+ and FAD into NADH and FADH2.
The main reason for the Krebs cycle is to make the NADH and the FADH2 for the next step, the ETC, or electron transport chain. So all of the NADH and the FAD2 that we made during the Krebs cycle is going to provide us with the energy we need using their electrons. The electron's energy is used as a sort of pump or motor along the inner membrane of the mitochondria where the Krebs cycle occurred. These proteins swap their electrons in order to send the hydrogen protons from inside the center of the mitochondria across the inner membrane of the outer compartment of the mitochondria.
Once they are out, the protons want to get back to the other side of the inner membrane. So all of the protons that are then allowed back through the help of ATP synthase. So the electrons from the 10 NADH that were produced from the Krebs cycle have enough energy to produce 3 ATP each. Plus the FAD2 each make 2 ATP.
This is how we make ATP through cellular respiration.
It looks right now. Okay, ready? Hey, I'm not ready.
Are you ready?
I messed that up, stop.
Oh my.
NAD+. Stop it. Releases some NAD+.
Stop! Too long. What is that word? There. Oh, and we're done. And done. And that's all. And we're done. Bye.